You gave my seat to that woman? Constance Mercer's voice cut through the reception hall hard enough to turn 3 heads near the security table. The scanner in the sergeant's hand gave another sharp rejection tone. A red light blinked across the plastic pass hanging from my mother-in-law's manicured fingers. The card scraped against her diamond ring as she shoved it toward him again. "Scan it properly," Constance said. "My son arranged this." The hall smelled of floor polish, burnt coffee, and the gardenia perfume she wore whenever she expected cameras. Beneath the collar of my dress uniform, the fabric pressed against the back of my neck, too stiff, too warm. Every time I swallowed, the metal insignia at my throat seemed to tighten with it. The sergeant kept his voice level. "Ma'am, this pass is no longer active." "No longer active?" Constance repeated. "I am Lieutenant Colonel Mercer's mother." "Mother-in-law," the sergeant corrected. Michael's hand closed around my elbow. Not hard enough to leave a mark, hard enough to remind me he expected obedience. "Danielle," he said under his breath, "fix this." For 43 years, I had answered pressure by becoming useful. Fix the schedule. Fix the shipment. Fix the family. As an Army logistics officer, I could move equipment across 3 states before breakfast and account for every missing crate by noon. But that morning, I looked at my husband's hand on my sleeve and did nothing. Constance thrust the pass toward me. "Tell him who I am." The plastic card still had Michael's handwriting on the back. "Mom, front row." I had seen it the night before, lying beside his cufflinks. He had promised her a seat that was never his to give. "The guest list was updated," I said. Michael's grip loosened. Constance stared at me. "Updated by whom?" "By me." The rejection tone from the scanner still seemed to hang in the air. Around us, officers and their families moved toward the auditorium. Leather shoes clicked across the polished floor. Dress uniforms whispered against chairbacks. Somewhere beyond the doors, the Army band was warming up, brass notes rising and falling before cutting off mid-measure. Constance lowered her voice. That was the voice she used when she wanted to sound reasonable in front of witnesses. "You are allowing a minor misunderstanding to humiliate this family." "What misunderstanding?" I asked. Her mouth tightened. Michael stepped between us and offered the sergeant a strained smile. "Could we have a moment?" The sergeant nodded once and moved toward the next guest. Michael guided me 3 steps down the corridor. Constance followed, her heels striking the floor in quick, angry taps. Walter and Brian remained near the security table, pretending to study the printed program. My husband leaned close. "What are you doing?" "I'm preparing for my ceremony." "You know what I mean." Michael glanced toward his mother. "She has told half the county she would be sitting in the front row." "That was unwise." His nostrils flared. "This isn't funny." "I'm not laughing." Constance folded her arms. "Your mother does not belong in that section." The words came out cleanly. No hesitation. No apology. Michael looked toward the auditorium doors, checking who might have heard. I watched him do it. Not once did he look at me. "Why not?" I asked Constance. "You know perfectly well why." "Say it." A muscle moved beside her mouth. Constance had always preferred insults that came dressed as concern. My hair was too bold for formal dinners. My voice became too sharp when I was passionate. My mother's church clothes were lovely for her community, but not quite right for Mercer events. Each remark arrived with a smile and a soft touch on my arm. That morning, there was no smile. "This ceremony will be attended by senior officers, donors, and civic leaders," she said. "Our family will be watched." "Our family," I repeated. "Yes. And my mother is not part of it?" Michael exhaled through his nose. "Danielle, don't do this here." "Your mother already did." Constance's perfume had thickened in the narrow corridor, sweet enough to coat the back of my tongue. She lifted one finger toward me. "Your mother will be more comfortable with the general guests," she said. "There is nothing insulting about that." The auditorium doors opened, and a wave of applause rolled into the hall as another honoree's family entered. Michael waited until the sound faded. "Give Mom her seat back," he said. "No." One word. Quiet. It landed harder than anything I could have shouted. His expression changed. Not much. Just enough. Michael knew my silences. For almost 12 years of marriage, he had treated them as surrender. This one made him nervous. "You're punishing her over one comment," he said. "Which comment?" Again, he had no answer. That told me he knew about more than one. A young female sergeant approached from the auditorium carrying a second laminated pass. She stopped beside me and held it out with both hands. "Ma'am," she said, "your special guest has arrived." Constance's gaze dropped to the card. The same gold border, the same embossed seal. the same access level she had expected to wear. But the printed name was different. Yvonne Brooks. My mother stood several yards behind the sergeant, one hand resting on the strap of her old leather purse. She wore a dark blue dress she had bought for my promotion, though I knew she had left the tag on until the night before, in case I asked her not to come. For a moment, she did not move. People flowed around her. A child laughed near the coat check. Someone dropped a set of keys, and the metal clattered against the tile. My mother's fingers tightened around the purse strap until the leather creased beneath them. Then her eyes found mine. "Danielle," Yvonne said. "Are you certain?" Constance made a sound between a scoff and a laugh. "This is absurd." I crossed the hall and took the pass from the sergeant. The plastic felt warm from her hand. When I slipped the ribbon over my mother's head, Yvonne touched the edge of the card as though it might disappear. "This will cause trouble for you," she whispered. "No," I said. "Staying quiet caused trouble for me." Behind us, Constance said, "Michael, do something." My husband did not answer her immediately. That pause mattered. 6 weeks earlier, my mother had received a letter from a bank concerning a loan modification I had never requested. Since then, I had learned to pay attention to pauses, to unfinished sentences, to the way a person's eyes moved when they heard a word they had been hoping you would never say. Michael looked from my mother's past to my face. "How long have you been planning this?" he asked. "The seating change?" "You know what I mean." I did. So did he. The sergeant opened the auditorium door for Yvonne. Warm air moved over us, carrying the dry scent of fresh programs and pressed wool. Beyond the threshold, rows of families sat beneath a giant screen displaying the Army seal. My mother reached into her purse. The corner of a brown envelope appeared between her fingers. She pressed it back down when she noticed Michael watching. "What's in the envelope?" he asked. "Something that belongs to Danielle," Yvonne said. Constance stepped toward her. "What exactly are you implying?" My mother met her eyes. Nothing in Yvonne's face changed. No raised chin, no trembling lip. She had spent 30 years handling angry customers at a credit union, then worked evenings, cleaning offices so I could afford school supplies. Constance had mistaken plain clothes for ignorance. She had done that from the beginning. "I'm not implying anything," Yvonne said. "I brought what my daughter asked me to bring." Michael's phone buzzed. His hand went to his pocket too quickly. Constance noticed. So did I. He checked the screen, and the color drained from his lips. Not enough for anyone else to call attention to it. Enough for me. "What happened?" Constance asked. "Nothing," Michael said. Brian crossed the hall from the security table. "Is it the bank?" Silence. Walter turned sharply toward his younger son. "What bank?" Brian's mouth opened, then closed. Michael shoved the phone back into his pocket. "This is not the place." Constance looked at me as though the answer had to be written somewhere on my uniform. "What have you done?" she asked. I adjusted the cuff of my jacket. My ceremony is about to begin. Then I walked my mother through the auditorium doors. The front row had been reserved for family members and invited guests. Michael's seat remained beside mine. I had left it there on purpose. Constance's seat had been reassigned to the general section, 5 rows back. My mother stopped when an usher pointed her toward the front. "I can sit farther back," Yvonne murmured. "No," I said. The cushion gave softly beneath her when she sat. She placed the old leather purse on her lap and rested both hands over it. Inside was the envelope from the bank, along with the copy of a pending loan application carrying a signature that looked like mine. Almost. The band began playing. Brass filled the auditorium, bright and ceremonial. The sound pushed against my ribs as I moved toward the side of the stage. Behind the curtain, an officer checked my name and promotion order, while another adjusted the microphone. Through a narrow opening, I could see the audience. My mother sat straight in the front row. Michael had taken his seat beside her, though he kept checking his phone beneath the program. Constance sat behind them, motionless, her inactive VIP pass clenched in one fist. Walter leaned toward Brian, demanding an answer Brian clearly did not want to give. A message appeared on my phone. "Rachel Holloway, preservation notice delivered." I read it once, then locked the screen. Rachel had warned me not to confront anyone before the records were protected. Emails could disappear, files could be renamed, phones could break in kitchen sinks. People became careless when they believed they still had time. The master of ceremonies stepped to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please rise." Chairs shifted across the floor in one long scrape. Programs rustled. The room came to attention. My name filled the auditorium. Major Danielle Brooks Mercer. I stepped into the lights. Applause struck from every direction, but one sound reached me first. My mother clapping. slowly at first, as if she did not trust her own hands, then harder. The stage lights warmed my face. The carpet beneath my shoes had a thin ridge near the podium, and the sole of my right shoe caught against it. Years of ceremonies kept my posture steady. My commanding officer spoke about supply operations, emergency deployments, and the soldiers who had come home because my team had delivered what they needed on time. No one mentioned my marriage. No one mentioned the Mercer family. For once, my work belonged to me. When the promotion order had been read, the host returned to the microphone. Every officer standing here was helped by someone who sacrificed beyond what any official record can show. I looked toward the front row. Constance began to rise. The movement was small, but I saw it. One hand pressed against the seat, her chin lifted. That familiar public smile had already appeared. The host continued, "Today, Lieutenant Colonel Mercer has asked us to recognize a woman who worked 3 jobs, mailed care packages to every duty station, and never once asked her daughter to become smaller so others could feel comfortable." Constance froze halfway up. The giant screen changed. A photograph appeared behind me. My mother and me outside a recruiting office more than 20 years earlier. I was young, nervous, and wearing a jacket 2 sizes too large. Yvonne stood beside me in her grocery store uniform because she had come straight from work. Below the photograph were the words, "The woman who sacrificed everything so I could stand here today." "Miss Yvonne Brooks," the host said, "would you please join your daughter on stage?" The room rose around her. My mother's shoes made almost no sound against the carpet as she walked toward me. The VIP pass rested against the blue fabric of her dress, catching the stage light with every step. She climbed the stairs carefully, and when she reached the top, I offered my hand. Yvonne took it. Her palm was rough against mine, the same hand that had sewn my first name tape onto a second-hand uniform, the same hand that had signed school forms at midnight after cleaning someone else's office, the same hand that had held a loan application 6 weeks earlier and pointed to the faint black mark beneath my stolen signature. My mother stood beside me while the audience applauded. From the stage, I saw Constance lower herself back into her chair. Her phone lit up. She glanced down. Even from that distance, I could see the subject line at the top of the message. Action required on pending credit request. The bank had been unable to complete verification. Processing had been paused. Nothing in the email mentioned me. Nothing mentioned fraud. It did not need to. Michael checked his own phone a second later. His thumb moved fast across the screen, and then Constance's device lit up again. She read his message. Her gaze snapped toward me. I held my mother's hand and faced the audience. Constance thought the bank needed one more phone call. Michael thought he still had time to fix whatever had gone wrong. Neither of them understood that 6 weeks earlier, my mother had found my name attached to a debt I had never agreed to carry. Nearly 3 years before my promotion ceremony, Michael called me from the emergency room and said his father had collapsed. "Danielle, they think it was a stroke," Michael said. His breath came fast through the phone. "Mom can't stop shaking. I need you here." The warehouse around me smelled of hot cardboard, diesel exhaust, and the bitter coffee someone had left burning in the break room. A forklift beeped somewhere behind my shoulder. Soldiers moved between pallets while I pressed the phone tighter against my ear. "Is Walter conscious?" I asked. "He's talking, but one side of his face looks wrong." Michael swallowed hard enough for me to hear it. "Please come." I handed my clipboard to the captain beside me, gave him the minimum instructions needed to finish the inventory, and drove straight to the hospital. By the time I arrived, Constance had taken control of the waiting room. Her purse occupied one chair. Walter's folded coat occupied another. A paper cup trembled between her hands while she told a nurse that the family had always been healthy, that Walter never complained, that no one had warned them. Michael sat near the wall with his elbows on his knees. When he saw me, he stood and pulled me into him. The front of his shirt smelled like sweat and hospital sanitizer. "Thank God," he whispered. Constance looked over the rim of her cup. "You came in uniform," she said. There was no gratitude in it, only disapproval. "I came from work," I replied. "People are staring." A man across the room was reading a fishing magazine. A woman near the vending machines was asleep with her head against the wall. No one was staring. Michael touched my back. "Mom's upset." "I can see that." Constance looked down at the ribbons above my pocket. "I'm just saying this is a private family matter," she said. "We don't need to make a display." Before I could answer, a doctor stepped through the double doors and called Walter's name. Constance rose so quickly that coffee sloshed over the lid and onto her fingers. She hissed, wiped her hand against a tissue, and rushed toward him. Walter had suffered a mild stroke. The doctor said his speech might remain slow for a while, and he would need therapy before returning to work. There were no guarantees about how much strength he would regain in his left hand. Michael sat beside me while the doctor explained medication, follow-up appointments, and the risks of another stroke. His knee pressed against mine under the small consultation table. When the doctor left, Constance stared at the packet of discharge information as though it had been written in another language. "We can't afford this," she said. Walter's insurance would cover much of the hospital care, but not everything. Physical therapy carried a copay. Prescriptions would add up. The mortgage on their house still required the same payment, whether Walter worked or not. Michael rubbed both hands over his face. "We'll figure it out," he said. Constance looked at me, not at her son, at me. The glance lasted only a second, but I remember it because that was when the room changed. Walter's illness stopped being only a medical crisis. It became a calculation. I did not understand the full shape of that calculation yet. 2 nights later, Michael spread papers across our dining table. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft scrape of his pen moving down a column of numbers. He had loosened his tie, but the knot still hung around his neck. A cold plate of chicken sat untouched beside him. "Dad's short-term disability will cover part of his pay," Michael said, "but it won't be enough." I took the chair across from him. "How much are they short?" Michael turned the page toward me. "Between the mortgage, therapy, prescriptions, and regular expenses, about $1,800 a month." My finger moved down the list. "What is this line?" "Home equity payment. They already have a mortgage. They opened the line a few years ago when the furnace died." The figure beside it was higher than I expected. "Why didn't you tell me?" Michael leaned back. "It wasn't our business." "It became our business when your mother looked at me in that hospital room." His jaw shifted. She was scared. So was I. Michael reached across the table, palm up. "I'm not asking you to cover everything." "Then what are you asking?" "Help me keep them afloat for a year." The refrigerator motor clicked off, leaving the room too quiet. "A year," I repeated. "Dad should be back at work before then. Maybe not full-time, but enough." Michael pushed another sheet toward me. He had marked the mortgage, the prescriptions, and the therapy costs in yellow. "If we send a fixed amount every month, they can breathe. We'll revisit it after 12 months. The number was large enough to matter, but small enough to look manageable beside my military pay. I studied his face. No smile, no pressure disguised as a joke. His eyes were swollen from lack of sleep, and gray shadowed the skin beneath them. "Not through your mother's personal account," I said. Michael nodded. "Fine. We use our joint household account, then transfer only what is needed." "Fine. The amount does not increase without both of us agreeing." "Of course. And it ends after 12 months unless we sit down with actual bills." He came around the table and crouched beside my chair. "Thank you," Michael said. "I swear this is temporary." His forehead rested against my hand. That was the promise I remembered later. Temporary. Not the tears, not the papers. That word. The following week, I arranged a fixed military allotment into our household account. From there, Michael transferred money to his parents for the mortgage shortage and medical costs. At first, everything looked exactly as he had described. Constance texted photographs of pharmacy receipts. Walter called after physical therapy and told me he had managed to button his own shirt with his left hand. "You helped pay for these sessions," Walter said, his words slower than before. "I won't forget that." "You focus on getting better," I told him. Michael began sleeping through the night again. The tightness around his mouth eased. On Sundays, we drove to his parents' house with groceries and sat with Walter while Constance made soup. For a few months, helping them felt like the simplest kind of kindness. Then the edges started to change. The first time Constance mentioned my hair after the stroke, we were sitting at her dining table. I had worn it in a natural twist style because I had come directly from drill. She tilted her head while cutting Walter's meat. "Are you permitted to wear it that way in uniform?" Constance asked. "Yes," I said. "I only ask because standards used to be stricter." Walter kept his eyes on his plate. Michael reached for the salt. "Mom," he said, "leave it." Constance gave a soft laugh. I'm complimenting her confidence. "No, you aren't," I said. Her knife paused against the plate. "I'm sorry you heard it that way." That was how Constance apologized. She handed the injury back to the person she had cut and made them responsible for bleeding. Michael's fingers tightened around the salt shaker. "Can we not do this tonight?" he asked. I looked at him. "Do what?" turn one awkward comment into a war. Constance resumed cutting Walter's food. The blade made a faint sawing sound against the china. No one spoke for the rest of the meal. 3 months later, I asked Michael for the latest medical bills. He was standing at the kitchen counter sorting mail. A stack of envelopes covered the granite, though most were addressed to us. "Mom sends them to me," he said. "I know, I want to see them." "Why?" "Because we agreed to review the expenses." Michael slid a credit card statement beneath a grocery flyer. "Dad still has therapy." "That wasn't my question." His mouth flattened. "You sound like an auditor." "I work in logistics. Missing numbers bother me." He picked up the mail and tapped the edges against the counter. "I'll get the bills." He did, 2 days later. The receipts added up. Most of them anyway. Enough that I let the small gaps go. That was another mistake. Not because the missing amount was large. It was not. Because the gaps taught Michael I would accept an answer that looked complete from a distance. At the end of the first year, I sat beside him on the couch with my laptop open. "The allotment expires next month," I said. Michael did not look away from the television. "Can we extend it 6 months?" "Why?" "Dad isn't ready for full-time work." He told me he was doing some consulting. Consulting is not steady income. The television crowd roared after a touchdown. Michael muted the sound. "Brian's business is helping with some of the expenses," he continued, "but it's still new. Mom needs stability. Your mother has had a year to make adjustments. She's caring for Dad. Walter drives himself to therapy now." Michael tossed the remote onto the cushion. "Why are you making this difficult?" The question sat between us. Not, "Can we afford it?" Not, "What do the bills show?" "Why are you making this difficult?" As if my money had already crossed some invisible line and become theirs. "I'm asking for numbers," I said. "You're asking me to put my parents on trial." "No, I'm asking why a temporary arrangement keeps growing." Michael got up and walked to the window. His reflection hovered in the dark glass. "You know what my mother says about you?" "I'm sure she says many things." "She says you never fully trust us." I closed the laptop. "Does she trust me?" He turned around. "What does that mean?" "Would she have signed for my mother's loan?" "This isn't about your mother. It never was. My mother had worked 3 jobs without asking anyone to save her. When the radiator failed in our apartment, she slept in a coat and paid the repairman in installments. She had never called Michael to say family helped family. Still, I extended the allotment for 6 more months. Michael kissed my forehead after I signed the form. "You won't regret this," he said. That same week, Walter returned to work part-time. I did not learn that from my husband. Walter mentioned it by accident during a Sunday phone call. "The office wears me out," he said, "but 3 mornings a week is better than sitting around." My hand stopped over the laundry basket. "How long have you been back?" A pause. "Almost 4 months." Michael entered the room carrying towels. The moment he saw my face, he knew. Walter cleared his throat on the phone. "I assumed Michael told you." He didn't. After the call ended, I placed the phone on the dresser. Michael set the towels down one by one. "You were going to tell me?" I asked. "Dad isn't earning what he used to." "That isn't what I asked." "He has medical costs." "Also not what I asked." Michael dragged both hands through his hair. "I knew you would use it as a reason to stop helping." The admission came without warning. Not an apology, a defense. "So you hid it." "I delayed telling you." "That is hiding it." He stepped closer. "My parents are finally stable. Why would you pull the floor out from under them now?" "Because they are standing on my floor." Michael stared at me. Then his voice dropped. "Blood is thicker than water, Danielle." The phrase had never sounded so strange coming from my husband. I picked up the folded towels and placed them in the drawer. "Whose blood?" I asked. He had no answer. By then, the original 12-month agreement had stretched past 18 months. 6 months became another 3, then another emergency appeared, a property tax increase, a repair to Walter's car, a payment Constance claimed had been lost in processing. Each crisis arrived just before I could stop the next transfer. And every time, Michael brought me only enough paper to make refusal feel cruel. The following Thanksgiving, my mother came to the Mercer house carrying a sweet potato pie wrapped in a clean dish towel. Constance accepted it with 2 fingers. "Oh," she said, "we already have dessert." Yvonne smiled. "Then you'll have 2. Inside, the living room smelled of roasted turkey, cinnamon candles, and the wood smoke Walter tracked in from the backyard. Family photographs covered the mantel. 7 frames. I appeared in 3. My mother appeared in none. When Constance called everyone together for a family picture, she handed Yvonne the camera. "You're so much better with these things," Constance said. My mother looked down at the phone, then at me. I can set the timer, I said. Constance waved one hand. Oh, don't make this complicated. Yvonne touched my wrist. It's fine, she said. Then, she stepped behind the camera. The Mercer family gathered beneath the mantel. Michael pulled me beside him. Constance stood in the center, one hand resting on Walter's shoulder, as though she had arranged every person in the room. The camera clicked. Once. Twice. My mother lowered the phone. Beautiful, Constance said. Yvonne handed it back. Later, while I helped dry dishes, Constance entered the kitchen and looked at the pie my mother had brought. You know, she said, Yvonne is very sweet. The water ran hot over my hands. But? I asked. Constance opened a cabinet and moved one plate half an inch to the left. No, but she's simply more comfortable with her own people. My fingers tightened around the dish towel. Her own people? You know what I mean. Yes, I said. I think I do. Constance turned toward me, wearing that careful smile. Don't be sensitive, we have always made room for you. From the doorway, Michael said, Mom, let it go. Constance lifted both hands. I said nothing wrong. My husband looked at me. Danielle, please. Not, Mom, apologize. Not, that was wrong. Danielle, please. I placed the dry plate on the counter and walked past him. My mother was waiting near the front door with her coat over one arm. Outside, before we reached her car, Yvonne stopped beneath the porch light. You don't have to fight every battle for me, she said. I should have said more. You said enough. No, I didn't. My mother slipped one arm into her coat. That woman has spent her whole life deciding who belongs in which room. Don't let her teach you to do the same. I glanced through the front window. The Mercers were gathering around Constance's phone, admiring the family photograph my mother had taken. Yvonne followed my gaze. Then she touched my cheek. I don't need to stand in their picture to know you're my daughter, she said. At the time, I believed that was enough. I drove home with Michael in silence, listening to the tires hum against the highway. His mother's perfume still clung to my coat. Sweet, heavy, impossible to ignore. The next morning, my allotment reached our joint account. Before lunch, Michael transferred it out. Most went to Constance. A smaller amount went somewhere else. I did not notice the name on that second transfer until much later. Mercer Freight Solutions, Brian's company. One day after my money arrived, the funds were gone. And not $1 had gone toward Walter's medication. 6 weeks before my promotion ceremony, my mother called while I was reviewing supply reports in my office. Danielle, Yvonne said, did you ask a bank to change a loan on the Mercer house? The air conditioner rattled above me. Paper rasped beneath my palm as I stopped halfway through signing a requisition form. Somewhere in the hallway, a cartwheel squealed with every turn. No, I said. Why? A letter came here for you. My mother still received some of my mail because I had used her house as my permanent address during a transfer between duty stations. Most of what reached her was harmless. Insurance notices, old alumni mail, the occasional envelope from a bank that had never updated its records. What does it say? I asked. Yvonne unfolded the paper near the phone. I heard the dry crackle. It says the bank received a request to modify the home equity line on Walter and Constance's house. It says they need to verify your identity before they can continue. My fingers pressed harder against the pen. That line was fixed 2 years ago. That's what I thought. You remember it? I remember every loan file I helped you read before you signed it. My mother had spent years processing applications at a credit union. She could look at a stack of forms and spot the one box someone had checked twice. Numbers never frightened her. People who hid behind them did. Don't call Michael yet, Yvonne said. The pen slipped slightly between my fingers. Why not? Because if this is a mistake, the bank can explain it. If it isn't, the person who made it may still think you don't know. Read me the phone number, I said. No, Yvonne replied. Use the number from your old statement or the bank's official website, not the number in the letter. I found the bank's official contact information, then called from my personal phone. After 2 transfers and a long identity check, a woman named Elena Ramirez came on the line. Lieutenant Colonel Mercer, I need to confirm something before we continue, Elena said. Did you submit a request to increase or extend the existing home equity line connected to the Mercer property? No. Did you authorize Michael Mercer to submit one on your behalf? No. A keyboard clicked on Elena's end. Please hold while I place a temporary pause on the request. Elena returned. The request is now pending review, she said. Because your name appears as a guarantor, I can send you an identity dispute form and a copy of the documents submitted under your name through the secure portal. How long will that take? You should receive access within the hour. Was money released? No funds have been advanced. Was anyone trying to change my contact information? A pause followed. I can confirm there was a request to update the phone number associated with verification, Elena said carefully. That request was not completed. Who submitted it? I'm not able to answer that yet. I thanked her, wrote down the case reference, and called my mother back. Come over after work, Yvonne said. Bring your old loan papers. Michael texted me before I left the office. Dinner at Mom's Friday. She wants to discuss promotion seating. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. By the time I reached my mother's house, the secure portal had released the file. Yvonne had cleared one end of her kitchen table and placed my original loan packet beside a yellow legal pad. The room smelled of peppermint tea and the lemon oil she used on the cabinets. Sit, she said. I opened my laptop. The pending application filled more than 20 pages. Walter and Constance were listed as property owners. My name appeared in the guarantor section, followed by a signature that looked like mine from a distance. Yvonne leaned closer. Make it bigger, she said. I enlarged the page. My signature stayed perfectly smooth, too smooth. When I signed by hand, the last letter of my name usually lifted slightly because I wrote quickly. This one lay flat across the line, every curve identical to the signature on my old authorization papers. My mother touched the screen with one finger. There, she said. A faint black mark sat beneath the signature image near the lower edge. What is that? I asked. Scanner dirt, or a scratch on the glass. Yvonne opened the old packet and found a copy Michael had scanned before one of my deployments. The same dark mark appeared in the same place. My mouth went dry. That machine was in our home office, I said. Who had access? Michael. Anyone else? Constance used it sometimes. Brian too, if he came over. Where were you that day? Yvonne asked. I checked my calendar. At a training course in Kentucky. Did you speak to a notary? No. Did you sign anything electronically? No. Yvonne sat back. This wasn't written, she said. Someone placed it. The refrigerator clicked on behind us. Tea steam touched my face, warm and sharp with mint. I looked again at the signature, then at the old copy beside it. The black mark matched. My phone buzzed across the table. Michael, are you still at work? Yvonne watched the screen light up. Answer normally, she said. I typed that I had paperwork to finish. The tenderness of the message made the copied signature worse. I closed the laptop halfway. What do I do? I asked. You call a lawyer before you call your husband. Rachel Holloway read the limited power of attorney twice. This expired more than a year before the application date, she said. Even when it was active, it allowed your husband to pay household bills and handle certain listed transactions during deployment. It did not authorize new borrowing. So he had no right to sign for me. He had no right to copy your signature onto a new consent. Do not confront anyone yet, Rachel said. My husband used my name. No, I said when Rachel started to answer. You understand the paper. I have to go home to him. Rachel held my gaze without softening her voice. And if he deletes the email account tonight, throws away the laptop, or convinces his mother to destroy records, you will still have to prove what happened. The loose armrest clicked beneath my hand. What can we do? Preserve what exists. Notify the bank in writing. Secure records you are legally entitled to access. Then we follow the money. She slid a yellow pad toward me. Do not enter any account that belongs only to him. Do not guess passwords. Do not take documents from his private office. Use your joint accounts, your own records, and anything properly produced through the bank. What about the allotment? Rachel considered that. Do not increase it. Do not promise anything. One more scheduled transfer may help show where the money is going, but I need to review the timing first. The thought of sending another dollar made my teeth press together. This is not surrender, Rachel said. It is documentation. That evening, I asked Michael about his father's prescriptions while he chopped onions at the kitchen counter. How much is Walter paying each month now? I asked. The knife paused. Why? Michael resumed chopping. A lot. How much is a lot? Several hundred. Can you send me the receipts? His shoulders tightened beneath his shirt. Mom has them. Ask her. Danielle, Dad had a stroke. Do we really need to audit every pill? I'm asking for receipts. Michael set the knife down. You've changed. Since when? Since the promotion became real, you act like everyone wants something from you. I watched his hand rest beside the cutting board, the same hand that had held mine at the hospital, the same hand that had access to our scanner. "Send me the receipts," I said again. The next allotment arrived several days later. By breakfast, Michael had moved the money from our household account to Constance. That afternoon, most of it left her account and entered Mercer Freight Solutions. Rachel's accountant traced the transfer using records I was legally entitled to view. The money had not paid Walter's mortgage. It had not paid for therapy. It had not paid for medication. 3 days later, Rachel called. "We received preliminary metadata from the bank," she said. "Tell me." "The application was created through an account registered to Michael Mercer," Rachel continued, "and the signature file was uploaded from the same account." I looked down at my wedding ring. Michael had not merely known. He had done it. Michael was waiting at the kitchen island when I came home. "You hired a lawyer." His voice reached me before the door finished closing. The house smelled of onions cooked too long, and the cedar candle Constance had given us last Christmas. A glass of water sat near Michael's hand, untouched. Beside it lay a thick white envelope from Rachel's office. Preservation notice. I set my keys in the bowl by the door. "Yes," I said. Michael pushed away from the counter. "Without talking to me?" "You submitted a loan modification with my signature without talking to me." His jaw tightened. "That is not what happened. The bank's records say otherwise. Records can be misunderstood. The account was registered to you." He stepped closer, lowering his voice as though someone might overhear us through the walls. "Mom and Dad were going to lose the house. You told me they needed help with medication. They did. You sent the money to Brian. Some of it." "How much?" Michael looked toward the envelope. That small movement answered more than his words. "Rachel will find out," I said. His hand flattened against the granite. "Do you hear yourself? Rachel will find out. The bank will find out. Everyone gets to know our private business except your husband." My husband already knew. "Danielle, you created the application. I filled out paperwork. You uploaded my signature. Because you had already agreed to guarantee the line. The old line. It was the same property. Not the same debt." His palm struck the counter with a dull crack. The sound stayed between us. Michael pulled his hand back and rubbed the heel of it against his thigh. "I was trying to keep my parents from being thrown out of their home," he said. "You were trying to borrow against their home to pay Brian's lender." His face changed. Not shock. Calculation. "How much do you know?" Michael asked. "Enough." "From who?" "The bank." "Did you talk to Brian?" "You just confirmed there was something to ask him." Michael turned away, then paced to the sink. Water dripped from the faucet at slow, uneven intervals. "You're twisting this," he said. "No, I'm separating it." "Separating what?" "What you told me from what you did." He faced me again. "Mom pushed for the modification. Did she upload my signature?" His mouth opened. Nothing came out. I waited. Michael had always hated silence when he could not control it. He filled rooms with explanations, softened commands into favors, and turned every boundary into a negotiation. That night, I gave him nothing to push against. Finally, he said, "She was desperate." That was not my question. She had Brian's creditors calling the house. "Did she upload my signature?" Michael dragged both hands down his face. "I did." The answer came out low. My wedding ring pressed against the skin of my finger as I curled my hand. "Why?" I asked. "Because I knew you would say no." No apology. Not yet. Only the truth he had been protecting. Michael stepped toward me, both palms open. "I was going to tell you once the loan was approved. You were going to tell me after my name was attached. I was going to explain. After I could no longer stop it. You could have handled the payment." The words slipped out before he could pull them back. I stared at him. Michael's shoulders dropped. "That's what this was," I said. "You thought I could handle it. You earn more than anyone in the family. That does not make me responsible for every debt your family creates. Brian made mistakes. Then Brian pays for them. He has employees. And I have a life." Michael's voice sharpened. "This is bigger than you." "No, you made it bigger than me because you used my name." For several seconds, only the faucet spoke. Drip, drip, drip. Then Michael reached for the preservation notice. "What exactly did your lawyer ask for?" "Emails, text messages, loan records, financial files, anything connected to the application." His thumb pressed against the edge of the envelope. "You didn't need to do this. You already did." He looked at me with the wounded expression he used when he wanted me to comfort him after he had hurt me. It had worked before. Not that night. I picked up my keys. "Where are you going?" Michael asked. "To see your father." Walter answered the door wearing a gray cardigan and work slacks. "You're dressed for the office," I said. He glanced down at himself. "Only half a day. How many days a week?" Walter stepped back, allowing me into the house. The living room carried the smell of furniture polish and the faint medicinal scent that had lingered since his stroke. Framed family photographs crowded the mantel. Constance had arranged them so carefully that even the gaps looked planned. 3 mornings, Walter said. "For how long?" He lowered himself into his recliner. "Danielle, if this is about the money, you should speak to Michael." I did. Walter's fingers began rubbing the armrest. "How long have you been back at work?" I asked again. "More than a year." A clock ticked above the fireplace. "Why didn't you tell me? Your help was keeping the house stable." "That was not the agreement. Your mother-in-law worried you would stop the transfers. So you let me believe you still needed the same amount for medical care." Walter looked toward the hallway. Constance was not home. Her car had been absent from the driveway, but the way he glanced over his shoulder told me she still occupied every room. "We had expenses," Walter said. "Brian had expenses." His fingers stopped moving. "How much did you know?" "Not everything." "How much?" Walter's gaze settled on a photograph of Michael and Brian standing beside him at a golf tournament. "I knew some of the money went to the business." "Did you know Michael used my signature?" His head snapped toward me. "No." The answer came too quickly to doubt. Walter leaned forward. "Michael did what?" "He submitted a modification request using a scanned copy of my signature." Color drained from his cheeks. "Constance said you had agreed to remain responsible for the line." "I agreed to the original amount, nothing more." Walter's lips parted, but no sound followed. "Did Constance know the new application was not authorized?" I asked. "I don't know." "That is not the same as no." He looked down. The cardigan hung loose around his shoulders. For years, Walter had presented himself as the quiet one, the reasonable one, the man who wanted everyone to get along. His quiet had cost me money. Now it had helped cost him his house. "I should have asked more questions," Walter said. "Yes. I never wanted this. But you accepted it." The clock continued counting behind us. Walter rubbed his left hand with his right, working the stiff fingers the way his therapist had taught him. "Your mother-in-law was afraid," he said. "Of losing the house?" "Of losing everything. She used my fear of losing the family." Walter closed his eyes. I stood. "If Rachel contacts you, answer honestly. What will happen to Michael? That depends on what he does next." Outside, evening traffic moved along the main road. I sat in my car for several minutes before starting the engine. Rachel called before I reached home. "The accountant found something else," she said. "What?" "Your transfers were not simply forwarded to Brian." Michael changed the transaction descriptions. "To what?" Payments to Brian's attorney were labeled as Walter's medical expenses. A vacation deposit was labeled as property tax. A country club payment was entered as home maintenance. The steering wheel felt rough beneath my palms. "How far back?" "More than 2 years." I pulled into an empty parking lot and shut off the engine. "So this wasn't panic over one deadline?" "No," Rachel said. "It was a system." Through the windshield, a grocery cart rolled across the lot until one wheel caught in a crack. "What happens now?" I asked. "We keep building the record. And you do not warn them about anything we have not disclosed. They already know about the preservation notice. That is enough." Rachel paused. "One more thing. We found a spreadsheet stored in the household billing folder." "What was on it?" "Your monthly allotment, your expected promotion date, an estimate of your pay increase." My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. They counted the raise before I received it. Yes. Michael had sat beside me through every interview, every training cycle, every night I came home too tired to eat. He had praised the work, held my hand, and told people how proud he was. Meanwhile, someone had entered my promotion into a spreadsheet as future income. By the time I reached home, Michael was on the phone in the guest room. The door stood partly open. "Do not delete anything," he said. "If you delete it now, it looks worse." A woman answered through the speaker, too faint for me to make out the words. Michael lowered his voice. "No, Mom, listen to me. Stop calling the bank." The floorboard shifted beneath my shoe. Silence fell inside the room. Michael opened the door. Neither of us spoke. His phone remained pressed to his ear. Constance's voice came clearly through the speaker. "Is she there?" Michael ended the call. "You heard part of a private conversation," he said. "In our house. With my mother. About my signature." His gaze moved past me toward the hall. "Mom is scared," he said. "She should be." Michael slipped the phone into his pocket. "You are enjoying this." The accusation almost made me laugh, but no sound came. Instead, I stepped into the guest room and placed Rachel's business card on the desk. From now on, you discuss the loan through counsel. You cannot be serious. I am. We are married. You remembered that after the bank contacted me. His eyes narrowed. Do you want a divorce? I looked at the man I had spent 12 years defending. That question should have broken something open. Instead, it settled into place like the final box on a completed inventory sheet. I want the truth, I said. You know the truth. No, I know you used my signature. Michael's mouth hardened. There is a difference? Yes, I still don't know whose idea it was. He looked away. That was answer enough for the night. 2 days later, Constance called my mother. Yvonne let the call go to voicemail. The message lasted 48 seconds. My mother played it for me in her kitchen. Yvonne, Constance's recorded voice said, I'm calling about Danielle's promotion ceremony. There will be important people there, and the Mercer family needs to present a united image. I think you would be more comfortable in the general section. Frankly, you do not reflect the kind of family representation expected in the front row. I trust you'll understand and not make this difficult for Danielle. The message ended. My mother set the phone on the table. I won't go, Yvonne said. Yes, you will. Danielle, you will sit in the front row. My mother folded her hands. This is your day. That is why you will be there. Yvonne looked toward the window. I spent your whole childhood teaching you not to fight over every insult. You taught me not to waste myself on people who wanted a reaction. That is different. Yes, I said. This is not a reaction. The next morning, I contacted the ceremony coordinator. One VIP pass was removed from Constance Mercer. One was issued to Yvonne Brooks. Michael's pass remained active. I wanted him close enough to see exactly what his choices had purchased. That evening, a courier delivered Rachel's preservation notice. Michael found it on the kitchen island when he came home. By then, I had already changed the seating chart. He looked from the envelope to me. What are you planning to do at the ceremony? Michael asked. I fastened the last button on my dress uniform. I'm planning to stand exactly where I earned the right to stand. Give me back my seat. Constance caught me outside the reception room before the applause had fully died. Her fingers closed around my forearm, nails pressing through the wool of my uniform. Behind her, silverware clinked against china, voices rose beneath the soft music, and the scent of roasted chicken mixed with her gardenia perfume until the air felt thick enough to chew. I looked down at her hand. Let go of me, I said. Constance released my arm at once, but only because Walter and several officers were close enough to see. That seat belonged to our family, she said, lowering her voice. You had no right to hand it to your mother. My mother is my family. You know what I mean. Yes, I said. That is the problem. Michael appeared at her shoulder, his promotion program folded into a tight square in one hand. Danielle, not here, he said. Your mother followed me here. Constance's mouth pulled into a narrow line. I came to stop you from destroying a relationship over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding does not leave a voicemail. Walter turned toward his wife. What voicemail? He asked. Constance glanced at him, then back at me. Yvonne twisted my words. My mother did not edit your voice. Michael shifted closer. Can we please go somewhere private? No, I said. His eyes flicked toward the officers moving past us. That old reflex again. Protect the appearance first. Handle the truth only if someone forced him. You are making this worse, Michael said. For whom? Before he could answer, my mother stepped out of the reception room. The gold border of the VIP pass rested against her blue dress. She held her purse with both hands, shoulders straight, expression calm. Constance saw the pass and gave a short laugh. You look pleased with yourself, she said to Yvonne. My mother stopped beside me. I was pleased to see my daughter honored, Yvonne replied. You enjoyed humiliating me. Yvonne's fingers tightened around the purse strap, but her voice did not rise. I walked where I was invited to walk. Constance stepped closer. You knew that seat was mine. No, my mother said. You believed it was yours. Walter looked between them. Constance, he said. What voicemail? She ignored him. Michael leaned toward me. Mom got a message from the bank. I met his gaze. What did it say? You know what it said. No, I know what the bank told me. His folded program made a dry cracking sound in his fist. Constance looked sharply at him. You said it was a verification delay. Michael did not answer. Brian hurried through the crowd toward us, phone pressed against his ear. His tie sat crooked, and sweat darkened the collar of his shirt. They paused the application, Brian said. The lender wants to know where the bridge payment is coming from now. Walter stared at him. What application? He asked. Brian stopped. Constance's face hardened. Not here. Walter's cane struck the floor once. What application? The sound carried farther than his voice. Nearby conversation thinned. A few heads turned, then turned away again, with the careful politeness people use when they want to listen without being caught. Brian lowered his phone. The home equity modification, he said. Walter looked at Michael. You told me that was paperwork to lower the payment. Michael opened his mouth, but Constance spoke first. It would have lowered the immediate burden, she said. By increasing the line, I replied. Walter's eyes moved to me. How much? Ask your sons. Brian looked toward the reception doors. Michael rubbed the folded program between his fingers until the paper tore. Dad, the business had a balloon payment, he said. Walter's face went still. How much? He asked again. Brian swallowed. More than we first discussed. How much? Constance reached for Walter's arm. Your blood pressure. He pulled away from her. For the first time since I had known him, Walter did not soften his voice to make room for hers. How much, Brian? Brian named the amount. Walter's cane slipped against the tile. My mother caught his elbow before he lost his balance. He looked at her hand on his sleeve, then at his wife. You put the house behind that debt? Constance lifted her chin. We were protecting our son. You told me the business needed a temporary cash buffer. It did. You never said this amount. Because you were recovering. Walter's mouth twisted. No. Because I would have said no. Michael stepped in. Dad, we had a plan. Walter turned toward him. Using Danielle's name? Silence. The room around us seemed to tighten. Michael glanced at me. That was enough. Walter's face changed. You signed for her? He asked. I submitted the application, Michael said. That was not my question. The same words I had used in our kitchen. Michael heard it too. Constance drew herself up. Danielle had already guaranteed the line. We were continuing an existing arrangement. With a new debt, I said. She could afford it. My mother inhaled beside me. Not loudly, just once. Constance heard it and turned. Yes, she said to Yvonne. Your daughter has done very well. The army has been generous to her. I felt the rough fabric of my mother's sleeve brush mine as she moved closer. The army did not give her that rank, Yvonne said. She earned it. Constance gave her a thin smile. And the Mercers supported her while she did. My mother looked toward Michael. By spending her pay before she received it? Michael's expression tightened. Constance's eyes narrowed. You have no idea what this family has carried. I know what my daughter carried, Yvonne said, including your bills. Walter closed his eyes. For a moment no one spoke. Then his phone buzzed. He took it from his pocket with stiff fingers, read the screen, and looked at Constance. The bank says processing is paused until they verify the guarantor. Constance reached for the device. Let me see. Walter pulled it back. Did you know Danielle had not signed? Constance's expression barely moved, but her left hand closed around the strap of her purse. I knew Michael was handling it. That is not an answer, Walter said. She looked at me instead. This is what you wanted, isn't it? To turn my husband against me in public. No, I said. I wanted my name removed from a debt I did not approve. You could have called me. You called my mother. Constance's lips parted. My mother reached into her purse and removed her phone. Walter, Yvonne said, you should hear this. Constance stepped forward. That is private. You left it on my voicemail, Yvonne replied. Walter held out his hand. For several seconds, my mother did not move. She looked at me first. I nodded. Yvonne placed the phone in Walter's palm. Constance's recorded voice filled the space between us. There will be important people there, and the Mercer family needs to present a united image. Walter listened without blinking. I think you would be more comfortable in the general section. Michael lowered his head. Frankly, you do not reflect the kind of family representation expected in the front row. When the message ended, Walter did not hand the phone back immediately. The music inside the reception room changed to a slower song. Someone laughed near the bar. A server passed with a tray of water glasses, the ice knocking softly against the sides. Walter gave the phone to Yvonne. You said that? He asked Constance. She straightened her jacket. My wording was poor. You called her. I was trying to protect Danielle's day. You told her she did not belong. Constance looked at me. Danielle knows what I meant. Yes, I said. I do. Walter's hand trembled on the cane. How long has this been going on? No one needed him to explain what this meant. The comments, the money, the silence. Michael stepped toward his father. Dad, this is not the time. Walter looked at him. You used your wife's signature, and you still think timing is the problem. Michael's face tightened. Brian's phone rang again. He rejected the call, then shoved it into his pocket. The private lender will not wait, Brian said. If the bank freezes the modification, I cannot make the payment. Walter turned slowly toward him. You told me the trucks were covering operations. They were. When? Brian looked away. Walter's shoulders sagged. Constance placed a hand on his back. We will fix this. He moved out from beneath her touch. No, Walter said. You keep saying that. Then someone else pays. For years, Walter had ended every argument with a plea for peace. That day, his voice sounded different, not stronger, emptier. He looked at me. I did not know about the signature. I believe you, I said. But I knew money was going to Brian. Yes. His eyes dropped. That makes me part of it. I did not rescue him from the sentence. Across the room, an officer from my unit lifted a hand in greeting. I returned the gesture, then looked at Michael. Rachel will contact your attorney, I said. I do not have an attorney. You should get one. Constance gave a sharp, disbelieving laugh. Over paperwork? Over my identity. Michael moved closer, speaking through clenched teeth. You are blowing up our marriage in front of everyone. Our marriage did not reach this room intact. His face shifted, and for 1 second I saw the man who had sat beside me on the hospital floor, the man who had promised the help would last 1 year. Then his phone buzzed again. He checked it. The man disappeared. I need to call the bank, Michael said. No, I replied. You need to preserve your records. Constance's voice rose. You cannot order my son around. I am not ordering him. I am warning him. Brian looked at Michael. Did you keep the application drafts? Michael did not answer. That silence followed us home. Rachel met me outside the house an hour later. Her sedan was parked at the curb, headlights off. My mother waited in the passenger seat while I unlocked the front door. The smell hit me first. Hot plastic. Michael stood near the home office with his jacket off and his sleeves rolled to the elbows. What happened? I asked. The laptop froze, he said. Rachel stepped in behind me. Where is it? She asked. At a repair shop. Which shop? Rachel asked. I do not remember the name. You drove your computer to a business and do not know the name? Michael picked up his keys from the console table. I was in a hurry. The home office door stood open. Inside, one drawer of the filing cabinet hung crooked. Papers leaned at an angle. A dust-free rectangle marked the place where the laptop had sat. Rachel did not enter the room. Michael, she said, you received a preservation notice before removing that device. I did not destroy anything. Then provide the shop information. I will. When? Tomorrow. Rachel's voice remained flat. Now. Michael looked at me. You brought her into our home. She came because you removed evidence from it. His shoulders stiffened. You do not know what was on that computer. No, I said, but you do. For a moment, no one moved. Then my mother came through the doorway carrying the brown envelope. She placed it on the entry table beside Rachel's briefcase. Michael stared at it. What is that? He asked. Yvonne's voice stayed quiet. The reason your wife stopped trusting your explanations. Rachel reached for her phone. I am documenting the condition of this room, she said. Do not touch anything else. Michael's eyes locked on mine. This is still my house. I looked past him at the empty space on the desk. Then you should not have removed the one thing everyone told you to preserve. Rachel's phone camera clicked softly as she documented the open drawer, the empty desk, and the power cord still hanging behind the chair. Michael watched her from the hallway. You are treating me like a criminal, he said. Rachel lowered the phone. I am treating the records as evidence. They are family documents. They include Danielle's signature and financial identity. Michael looked at me. Tell her to leave. No, I said. His face hardened. By morning, Rachel's forensic specialist had recovered the household cloud backup from an account Michael and I both legally owned. The missing laptop mattered less with every file that appeared. Draft loan applications, a scanned image of my signature, a spreadsheet tracking my military allotment. Another column listed my expected promotion date and estimated pay increase. Rachel turned the laptop toward me in her office. My name sat at the top of the spreadsheet. Danielle promotion increase. The words were plain, almost casual. My marriage had been reduced to projected income. Rachel opened an email from Michael to Constance. Once Danielle gets promoted, I can ask her to raise the transfer. Do not mention Brian's lender until the modification is approved. Another message followed. Constance had written, "She will complain, but she will pay. She needs this family more than we need her attitude." I read the sentence twice. Then I closed the screen. "What happens next?" I asked. "We send the bank what we have," Rachel said. "Then we prepare for whatever they do when they realize the records survived." Constance moved first. She called members of the Military Family Foundation and claimed I had used my rank to intimidate civilians. Within days, my commanding officer asked to meet. He sat across from me with the complaint printed on his desk. "Did you use Army personnel or systems to interfere with a private loan?" he asked. "No, sir." "Did you threaten your in-laws with military action?" "No, sir." I placed my disclosure paperwork, bank correspondence, and Rachel's engagement letter in front of him. "My attorney handled the civil matter," I said. "The bank contacted me because my identity appeared on the application." He reviewed the documents in silence. "You reported the conflict before the ceremony," he said. "Yes, sir." "And nothing concerning the loan was announced at the event?" "No, sir." He closed the folder. "This stays a private civil and legal matter unless new facts affect your duties." Constance had tried to turn my uniform into a weapon against me. Instead, the paperwork showed I had kept it out of the fight. Brian broke next. He met with Rachel and admitted Michael had asked him to hide the true destination of the money. Brian brought texts, repayment plans, and an email where Constance referred to my allotment as the family reserve. "I knew Danielle did not have the whole story," Brian said. "I did not know Michael copied her signature." "You still accepted the money," Rachel replied. Brian stared at the table. "Yes." The bank's final timeline filled the remaining gaps. Michael created the pending modification through his account. The signature file came from the same login. A request to change the verification number had been submitted from the network at Constance's house. No call from me existed. No consent from me existed. The modification was denied. 3 days later, Michael received notice that I had filed for divorce. That afternoon, Constance called me 49 times. I answered none of them. The Mercer house did not disappear overnight. Consequences rarely moved that fast. First came the missed balloon payment. Then the formal notices. Then the sale. Michael accepted a plea agreement related to attempted financial fraud and misuse of my identity. He received supervised probation, restitution, and a conviction that ended his work in financial management. During mediation, he sat across from me with his lawyer beside him. "I never wanted to lose you," Michael said. "My wedding ring had already been removed. You lost me each time you used my trust to finance another lie," I replied. He lowered his eyes. Constance avoided criminal charges, but the civil case stripped away everything she had protected with appearances. She repaid part of the diverted money. The Military Family Foundation removed her from its board after reviewing the voicemail and financial records. The country club membership disappeared soon after the house was listed. Walter moved into a small apartment. Before leaving the house, he called me once. "I should have spoken sooner," Walter said. "Yes," I replied. "I kept thinking silence was peace." "It was protection," I said. "Just not for me." Brian closed his company, sold the trucks, and cooperated in exchange for reduced liability. No one escaped untouched. Several months later, Constance called from an unfamiliar number. "They are closing on the house Friday," she said. "After everything we did for you, are you really going to let us lose it?" I stood in my mother's kitchen while Yvonne unpacked dishes into a newly painted cabinet. "You did not lose the house because I stopped paying," I said. "You lost it because you spent my money as if I had no right to say no." "This is your mother's fault," Constance snapped. "No," I said. "My mother only showed me the signature." Then I ended the call. Yvonne had framed the VIP pass and placed it on a small shelf near the kitchen window. "You kept it," I said. "Not because of the chair," my mother replied. "Then why?" She adjusted the frame until it sat straight. "Because that was the first day you stopped asking permission to love me in public." My final divorce papers arrived the following week. Rachel's envelope also contained confirmation that my name had been removed from the disputed guarantee and that restitution would be collected from Michael under the settlement. I placed the letter beside the framed pass. Then I opened my banking app. My next military paycheck had arrived. No automatic transfer left the account. For years, the Mercers had treated my paycheck like proof that I belonged to them. Taking it back did not make me cruel. It made me free.